Hello, my name is Osha, and I normally talk about American presidents, but that's not what I do for a living. While I have the malicious prosecution against me in Montgomery County, uh, still going on, preventing me from working or going back to my home in Nigeria to see my mother, my family. I haven't seen my mother since 1999. I thought not to waste my time or, allow the bad actors in the uh, Department of Navy and Department of Defense and in Montgomery County, Maryland's criminal justice system. I thought I wouldn't let them waste my life, right? My parents have invested too much in me. I have invested too much in myself as well. So that's why I've been doing videos regarding history and the law. My mom's 85 years old, and my family as well and friends, they got concerned that although rogue agents of the Department of the Navy, including Nathan R. Brown, had failed in their initial attempt to murder me on May 16, 2023, they might attempt a second time. So they've been nervous, and it's astonishing that the FBI has not taken it seriously. The Department of Justice has failed to prosecute violations of my rights, the egregious violations of my rights, conspiracy to violate my rights, the kidnapping under color of law, the rights deprivation, malicious prosecution. The FBI has done nothing. All they keep doing is referring things back to the Montgomery County Police Department, for which goes to the Internal Affairs Department or whatever it is, IAD, and of course they just send boilerplates absolving the rogue cops who assaulted me, but they haven't gone deeper into the role of the Navy, rogue agents of the Navy. So I'm going to say what happened, right? What happened, my experience, and how rogue agents of the Department of the Navy broke the law. They committed a crime and engaged in a conspiracy to commit murder. They engaged in a conspiracy to cause me bodily harm, right? Severe bodily harm, uh, uh, rights deprivation under color of law. They instigated a swatting and they attempted to murder me on May 16, 2023, in order to obstruct justice and as a form of retaliation. I'm a law abiding American citizen. I've always been law abiding. I respect the law. That's why, I've been a banker. I've been a, I've been an auditor, right? In fact, I was working as an auditor as of the day I was swatted by Montgomery County Police on May 16, 2023. And, of course, and I'm a lawyer. I'm not a practicing attorney, but I'm a lawyer. Um, just understand the phrase, all attorneys are lawyers, not all lawyers are attorneys. So I don't practice, but I hold a Juris Doctor from George Washington University Law School. So I'm doing this video just to let the world know the rogue actions of agents of the Department of the Navy and Department of the Defense. These are people who are dangerous. They violate uh, the the uh, the rules of the Federal Civil Service. They act as though they are above the law, and they use they abuse their office, right? Which is a public trust. They use it to commit various forms of misconduct, and in my case, they used it to attempt murder. So let me get to it and say what happened. So I started working in the Department of the Navy on September 12, 2022. I had interviewed for the position sometime in February, March. I started the process February 2022. At the time, I was working as a project manager um, in a credit union, supporting the CEO and president of a credit union in DC. I had many other options available. Excuse me. I was coached for the job by Miss Donjette L. Gilmore. She's currently the Auditor General of the Navy. She assumed the position on June 19, 2022 as Auditor General of the Navy. She had been helping me and encouraged me to file an equal employment EEOC complaint regarding harassment and retaliation and misconduct, which I suffered as a John S. McCain Strategic Defense Fellow. I'll do another video concerning that. But while doing that, because my intention was to go home to Nigeria. Hadn't been home a long time, and this was just, after COVID, right? And I had got done back to back degrees, right? Just been in school for such a long time, and I was a citizen. I was very eager to serve my country, right? To serve America, to just say thank you to America because, I'd succeeded. I'd been successful in what it is that I wanted to do. So, success, people don't define what is success to you, right? If we're going to use a right standard, right, you define what is success for you as an individual. And for me, the goals that I'd set for myself, I had accomplished. The goals my parents had set for me, I'd accomplished. So what I was now experiencing was something totally new that I never planned for, right? So here I was. It was unbelievable that uh, Miss Donjette L. Gilmore seemed to appear to take an interest in me, and she appeared to be cultivating me. She fixed my resume. She was doing a number of things. She would tell me what to study every time. She would prepare me for my interviews, groom me, all that stuff, right? I spoke with her every day, right, for hours. So, because she had this sort of interest in me, in being in the federal civil service, and then of course I took it seriously despite my other opportunities. So, although other people, started, got their positions right very quickly, right, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, very, tops. It took me 6 months from the time of my interview, almost, yeah, about just about 6 months to for me to actually start, because they would say, go and get this, go and get that, go and do this. It just took a long time, right? So I went through the process eventually. And so something also happened, right? When I was going through the onboarding, they offered me a GS 11 position, right? So GS, that's general schedule. So there are different levels, right, in the federal government. Um, they gave me a pretext, and that pretext they gave me was actually a fabrication. They told me that the management didn't want to offer me GS 11, that they were offering me a GS 9, and I insisted that no, I'd only take the GS 11 position. So, or if they gave me a certain amount of money, I was fine with it, because the person who a woman called Kendra Atiz, she was director of the human resources or whatever. She now came back to talk to me. She spoke with me for about an hour. I remember I recorded it, I had it on my phone. I think it was about 47 or 48 minutes. I was at work, but she took my time and was talking, sounded desperate, trying to convince me to accept, this particular level. When her subordinate had first, called me, her name's, you know, when her subordinate had first called me, she's a black woman. When she called me, she told me what she was calling me for, to make me an offer, to review me and make me an offer for. And then she said the GS 11. Then she now goes, as proceeds in the conversation, she said, actually, I'm qualified for the GS 12, but that's what she thinks. So that was what we understood that I was being offered and all that. Then they now started going in circuitous, going round and round in circles. This took a long time, right? I had a job, right? Where I was, they had offered me a permanent position. The person I was working for, the CEO, the president, she was of the opinion that, look, I should be a CEO somewhere. I know my worth, right? I already, somebody, nobody has to tell me what it is I have to do. But uh, again, my interest at that time was to serve the U.S. government, because I was a new citizen, and of course, my thing was service. So I just really wanted to serve a nation that had been good to me. That was my thing. Um, but this, they would go on and on, call me several times. It became like harassment. They called me numerous times. Bring this, bring that, bring they all sorts of verification, and that's okay. But of course, I'm allowed to state that, okay, you know what, this is what OPM is. OPM is Office of Personnel Management, and they match you. They have certain credentials, and they match your level, what they're going to give you in the federal government, to make sure they're not discriminating against you. So they match your offer with your qualifications, and my qualifications said they had to give me at least this. So eventually, they now said, well, okay, they can go and meet management. That's Kendra Atiz said. She'll go to management. What if they give me this certain amount? Because her argument was, look, I know you're qualified for this. This is what you should get because of your JD, Juris Doctor, your MBA, all your qualifications, your background. But we don't want to fail an audit. This is what she was telling me. I'm an auditor. I've been an auditor. This person said, talking about audits, by the way, in the HR in the Navy, none of them has an accounting degree. So they don't even know what they're talking about, right? So I'm wondering, why would you fail an audit if I'm qualified, right? Why would you fail it if she said, oh, that if they come and audit them? At some point, she said, oh, but you're qualified, that I'm qualified for the GS 15. I think she said 14 or 15. I know what I'm qualified for, right? I was a John S. McCain Strategic Defense Fellow. I know what I'm qualified for, right? But I had substantial experience in in private sector. And when you go to the federal government, anyway, let me not go into that detail. So she said that. Eventually, I said, okay, if they offer me this amount, that okay, fine, I'll do with that, because I want to serve the government, but at the same time, I'm not going to shortchange myself. I'm not going to let it's a disservice if, um, especially considering that I'm a black person, right? if I'm taking if I'm undervaluing myself and I'm accepting something lower than my qualifications, then they would use it as a yardstick and as a fig leaf for other Black Americans, other minorities, and I wasn't going to do that, especially since it's unethical. So eventually, um, we settled. They sent me an offer. So everything they were telling me, I was going back to the Auditor General of the Navy, Miss Gilmore, the head. I was telling her everything, and she tell me what to do, how to proceed. So eventually, they sent me an offer for GS 11, right? So I'd even told them. I said, so they sent me an offer for GS 11. So I saw it. I went through the onboarding. I accepted it and everything. I went through, so I told the Auditor General. She said, "Oh, that means they're offering you the GS 11. Accept it." Blah 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 blah. Because she was the Auditor General, she knew what was going on, right? Um, so when I went through the whole process, after somehow it now came out on a lower level, a GS 9, even though I'd onboarded, gone through the GS 11, they now called me and said it was an error. And then they now told me that management refused to raise it up, that they wanted to give me something lower. The management didn't think I had the qualifications, blah, blah, blah. They just said all sorts of stuff. It turned out Kendra Atiz was lying, because I saw the guy who initially talked to me, the first person, who was a black man, John, that was his name. He was high, was a GS 15. He had been there for, it was a great guy. I got along with him. It was so sad that he left soon as not long after I started, right? He left while I was going through my orientation. He left. But he was a great guy, great rapport when I was going through the process. He was a veteran, military, because I'm talking about the civilian side. This is all the civilian side. I don't know what goes on the military side. The Navy, the Department of Defense, they have civilian personnel as well. So I was working as a civilian personnel, not in the military, not military, but civilian personnel. So this guy, it turns out I saw the email, I saw everything he had said, I learned of the communication. He was insisting that I start as a GS11. It was Kendra because the HR, they're supposed to be the subject matter experts, right? And they advise the management, right? Hiring managers that, okay, this is what this person is qualified for, this is what the law says they can do. This person interpreting the law is not a lawyer. So you see the sort of, it's them that should be failing audits in the Department of Human Resources, the Navy. They would fail audits because she's not a qualified lawyer. She's not an accounting and she's hiring for accountants. It doesn't make sense. So it shows you the sort of fraud that goes on in the Department of the Navy, right? Why is it, cronyism? Why does she have that job? She's not a lawyer. She's not an accountant. As I was even talking to them, you could tell they didn't know what they were talking about. They were just BSing their way through. They're just winging it, just using every kind of deception in the game, right? They're just like snake oils, man. And I was so unimpressed because this is supposed to be the federal government. I had all these high expectations of the federal government because I'd come from the private sector, and so I thought, wow, that you know I was really unimpressed by their conduct. So it turns out she was just totally lying, right? Totally lying. Okay, what about the pay? Because she said, okay, they're going to give me a higher step. This was what she was trying to. She said, look, would I switch the GS11 for a higher step at a lower GS level for a higher step? I said, fine. She said, so that was where she left it at. So eventually, I went through the onboarding for GS11. The Auditor General, she was the Auditor General. She said, okay, hey, I have an offer for GS11. After I'd done the onboarding, they now came back to me and said, okay, that was a mistake. That the black woman made a mistake. They put it all on her, the black woman. The black woman was talking with two sides of her mouth because she told me during the process, she said, hey, you know what, on board. When you finish onboarding, you go to the manager. The manager has the authority to change it. And I went to see, I checked what she said was true, right? So by the way, I onboarded for GS11, what it was that I wanted, that the minimum that I said I would take. But after I came in, they now did all sorts of funny, they do these fraudulent things. They don't, in fact, the manager had scheduled me to start on a certain day at the Pentagon because I was supposed to do my orientation. You do your orientation at the Pentagon. He had scheduled me, go to the Pentagon, everything. Then when the woman now canceled, now asked me to go and do something else again, to get something else again, which was redundant. So they just come up with all these rules. They don't have a standard, and they're breaking the law. And they could be sued for discrimination, right? Because they're using these different rules. So at some point, Kendra Atiz started telling me about how her husband is an international, he's Turkish, blah, 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 he's international, and she knows all the requirements for me as an international. I was like, I'm an American citizen. Why are you calling me an international? So you could see she was really, she didn't even know what she was talking about. So in any event, so we start. So this was where the problem, the mix up started, right from the onboarding. So I start, you know, September. I eventually start September 2022. I eventually start, and I can't say where it was that I was working, but in what's called a classified area, right? A SCIF, secure. It's called a sensitive compartmented information facility. It's called a SCIF, right? So I was there. I went, and you know Miss Gilmore, the Auditor General, they didn't know she was my mentor. She told me not to tell anybody that I knew her, that she was my mentor. She eventually told me what was going on, who wanted me to have a lower grade and all that stuff. That it was her Assistant Auditor General called Nefertari McBride. That she was one who was really pulling the strings, doing everything. Meanwhile, she didn't express any confidence in this Nefertari McBride. So in any event, I focused on doing my work, right? I let it go. I focused on doing my work, doing it excellently. At some point, and that was when I met, great people from in my orientation. In the orientation, I met somebody who had worked in the CIA, the FBI, people who had, so we exchanged contacts, everything. So they were great. They gave me advice. They've been in the government for a long time because at that time, incidentally, I was being pursued by other agencies, right? And so this person told me, no, that you're in the best place, right? The DOD, that's the best place. If you go to these other agencies, you won't like the people there. That you should be in an environment where the people have similar values, similar ideals, similar. If you love learning, if you have so much education, you should be in people in an environment where they're similar to you, right? So I took it. I took the advice, right? These people who, they took an interest. We hung out together during orientation because, different people from different agencies. So they gave me their advice. And, I was like, that's fine. I'm somebody, I put my head down, right? I work. I don't engage in nonsense. I work. So, well, no sooner had I started, right? One person now started to harass me, a female. She just joined. She had been there for 16 years, and I heard a lot about her, a lot of negative stuff about her. She'd worked for 16 years in the Navy as a civilian. Now she was in the military. She joined the military side as well. So she was Navy, and she was a civilian, and she was in the military, which is bizarre. And I remember that was what she was bragging about her collecting money from both sides, which should be illegal, right? If you're a civilian full time, why are you switching? Well, I don't know. There are just ways people game the federal government. So she told me she was now collecting money. She joined the military side to be able to collect money as a civilian and as a military, whatever, right? So so this person started to harass me, right? And I'm somebody who's been working. She just would start to. She was so rude. I'd never met. She was so rude. I was, and I didn't. I was there to work. So of course I would tell the auditor general everything that was going on. Immediately, the auditor general, she did something, said some things. The auditor general told me, "Hey, they're harassing you." She called me. The auditor general. She called me because she told me don't tell them. She was the one who called me and said, "You know what? Go and report her to HR." That was what she first said. Reported to HR. HR was Kendra Atiz. So I reported to HR. And she sent something, said to report her to EEO. So I reported to EEO because from my experience, when it's the federal government, harassment is supposed to be a no-no. When somebody's harassing you, creating a hostile work environment, they're being rude, they're doing all these things, you're supposed to report it. I didn't want to report it. The options the Auditor General gave me, she had told me, look, you can quit. There's this other directorate. They're looking for people. If they're harassing you, don't worry, move. One had just started. I'd not even done 1 month. I had not even done 1 month, just a few weeks. And it's just this one person. I could not keep jumping around from, I didn't want that. It didn't look good on my resume. And again, I have to think about my resume. And then, I have to be able to show stability because that's not me. That to be just be jumping around, not finishing things. And you don't know if you're moving from frying pan into fire, right? You don't know. Yeah, there's a saying, the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. So she was offering me to move to another directorate, that there's this directorate that needs people. That's what the auditor general was telling me. But I was like, okay, I don't want to leave. It's just this one person. And so once she told me, the other option she gave me was, okay, go and report it to HR and EEO. So I reported it immediately. I reported it. But my reporting now caused um, wahala. It now pissed off the head of the directorate I was in, was the assistant auditor general at the time. But I think they now changed titles or whatever. That's Nefertari McBride. She now got angry, right? She now got angry. She herself had initially done something that was wrong, right? She acted like she was trying to romance me, right? She was trying to get fresh with me. She invited me to Starbucks. I told the Auditor General, and there she was trying to get fresh with me. The Auditor General said that was wrong. It was inappropriate. Everything I was telling the Auditor General, they didn't know. So she said that was inappropriate. So she was, but at least there was something important that came out from that outside external, uh, discussion visit that she invited me to. She let me know that the lower GS level that I was on, that she was under the impression that I was supposed to be on a higher step. That was what she actually told HR. So when I learned that, I went to EEO because that meant Kendra Atiz just was deceiving me everywhere, right? She deceived me. That was not because Kendra Atiz was telling me something totally different. Kendra Atiz was director. She's a white female director of the of HR. I think she's from the South, from Mississippi or something like that, right? She was the one who talked to me when I was in the private sector that then, at the time they made me this offer, right? She would talk to me for an hour. All of them, every time HR, everybody wanted to talk. They would just call me. It was as if they just wanted to hear my voice. I'd be at work, they just call me, they just be going on and on, asking just, I thought, okay, hey, okay, these people really want me. Let me go there. What is it that these people really want me for? That was my attitude. Sometimes, I think I got to a state that I had a philosophy that don't be desperate to go somewhere, right? Go where it's demonstrated that they want you. But I've learned from this bad experience that no, you don't know what people want you for. The people who want you so desperately might not be, you might be headed for trouble. They might be trying to set a trap for you. And, that's the bad experience that I had with the Department of the Navy and the Department of Defense, unfortunately. So I I found out that okay, that uh, she had misrepresented the offers that were made by management. So I pursued that. I went ahead and I told EEO, the Equal Employment Opportunity Agency. So again, all the while, the Auditor General of the Navy was talking to me every day. Uh, I'm going to stop this video here and I'll continue with, so I don't just make it a long video. So I'll make it in bits. I'm going to break them up. But this is important to set the record straight because um, candor, right? You can be fired, disqualified from the civil service for lack of candor. So Nefertari McBride, lack of candor, that's just another way of saying dishonesty or telling lies. Nefertari McBride, Nathan R. Brown, who was the audit director at that time, um, Makita Scott, Ruth Pollard, Felicia Allen, they all demonstrated a lack of candor. They all lied, right? And from their actions, they demonstrate a lack of integrity, lack of candor of the type that the civil service claims that they desire in their civil servants, their public servants. And so I'm setting the record straight. They committed various crimes, including making intentionally false, malicious statements against me, defamation. When you go to work for the federal government, you still keep your constitutional rights. One of the things that they're not supposed to do in the federal government is, make false accusations and defamation. These people were lying, making false accusations and defaming me, right? And not only that, I found out that they instigated a swatting, right? They're the ones who are behind the swatting that occurred on May 16, 2023, in which I was almost killed. So Jide Wari has also claimed that he spoke with them, that he spoke with somebody from the Navy, that he was suborned and all that stuff, that he took these actions that he took. But let me set the record straight and just say what was going on. I was doing my work excellently. I never threatened anybody. I never harassed anybody. I was one who was being harassed. I was working remotely, right? I was working remotely. I worked alone in my home. I don't own a gun. I've never owned a gun. I didn't go and harass anybody, right? And my job at some point was my job was just to take courses, right? Who am I going to be harassing just taking online courses? Sometimes, I appear online and I was passing all my courses, doing excellently, right? Of course, you can see I have over 4 degrees, so you can really easily tell taking courses, taking exams, I would have no problem accomplishing, those objectives. So I'm going to stop this video here and I'll continue with my experience in the Department of the Navy and how Nathan R. Brown, Kendra Atiz, and other rogue agents of the Department of the Navy conspired to violate my civil rights and conspired also to cause me grievous bodily harm and attempted murder on me. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.